Aloha, Bravehearts. Welcome to the Aquarian Collective. My name is Veronica. I'm a clairaudient, intuitive channel and astrological guidance counselor that works with the body, mind, and spirit. Today, I am so very happy to get to weave together with you all with deep awe, compassion, courage, and to create a healing tapestry. You are our witnesses, Bravehearts. And this video will take courage, so I hope you will stay with us till the end. We thank you. It is my deep honor to get to introduce to you today a very powerful woman. She is incredibly brave and courageous, as she has gone through unimaginable suffering from a very young age. She went through all of this to arrive at this monumental moment in history's evolution, to stand up for us all, to eradicate worldwide ignorance of the darkest kind. It is through her own self-mastery and her self-mastery of integration and forgiveness. I give you Nancy. Nancy and I met serendipitously at Savers, a local thrift store, in the checkout line, waiting to pay for our fines. I noticed she had a mask on and I did not, but that did not stop our friendship from blooming. I told Nancy I was healthy and I did healing work. Her eyes lit up and she asked for my card. This began a friendship of depth that I could not have fathomed in the first few moments. Nancy Kruger is a survivor of Satanic Cult Ritual Abuse. Sold by her own mother from the age of 3 to 17, she survived by dissociating into multiple personalities. Despite her stark reality, Nancy went on to college at Cal Poly Pomona, where she received both her Bachelor's of Science in Biology and Home Economics in 1972. She went on to teach high-risk students in junior high. Her one rule was, I will show respect towards myself and others. Soon after, Nancy had one beautiful daughter with her first husband. After moving back to California, she began teaching parenting for 6 years, with an emphasis on values and how to live up to them. She moved with her family to Hartford, Connecticut, where she wrote an independent living curriculum to students leaving foster care and juvenile detention systems. She is now godmother to one of the first babies that was born that year. He is now 34 and they are just as close today. Nancy is also the author of a book called Now Is All There Is. The book is like a Girl Scout handbook for healing from multiple personality dissociative disorder. Nancy is currently living in New Mexico with her 2 loyal and loving dogs, Sparky and Shadow. Firstly, we want to make it abundantly clear to all our viewers that the perpetrators of Satanic Cult Ritual Abuse are not who you would imagine them to be, but are sadly, they can be the people you need and rely on the most. The abusers portray themselves cloaked as good members of society. They are very talented at hiding behind false masks. We dedicate the story of Nancy's life and this interview to the total and complete eradication of ignorance and suffering, to the dissemination of truth, and to awaken all those still sleeping while countless children's lives are being split apart. We dedicate this story not to invoke fear, but to have courage. We dedicate this work to freedom, liberation, and the safety of all children and beings everywhere. And lastly, we devote this interview to all the guardians and protectors around the world and unseen worlds that are standing up right now for all beings being oppressed. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, I am a survivor of Satanic Ritual Cult Abuse. And it was a very hard ride. My parents got married in 1946, right at the end of World War II. My mother graduated from Cal Berkeley and my father graduated from UCLA. They were both the first college graduates in their families, and we're very proud of their success. they divorced when I was 3, but had separated when I was about 2.5. My mother was a very controlling person. My father was a very controlling person, and it didn't work out very well. The divorce was caused in part by the fact that my mother wanted to go back to work. She did not want to stay home with another kid, especially not another girl. She was very disappointed that I had not turned out to be a boy, but I guess she had to get over that somehow. But she enrolled me in a preschool, and at the preschool I was identified as being adaptable or acceptable for the cult ritual abuse. They wanted children who were very compliant, who were very much people pleasers, who wanted to always be good, and that fit me to a T.
They were also, if I understand this correctly, they look for children that are very strong, that their spirits are strong and can't be broken very easily. That's an important
I don't think
characteristic
they
trait.
look for that. I think they look for children whose spirits they think they can break.
Okay, excuse me then.
Yeah.
Okay. Just
Because-
strong enough to not break, though.
Hopefully,
Right.
yes.
So they hope.
But in the process of deciding who is acceptable, there's a long grooming process where both the child and the parent have to participate. For me, I had to do an initiation, which I will read to you.
But when they're looking for the children that fit the bill,
Hypnosis. I was very hypnotic, I still am. And they took me to a doctor's office and made me stare at a spiral, and I was gone. And that sort of easy hypnosis was crucial to the development of multiple personalities, because that's where the personalities would go. I'd like to read you the first story
may I help?
of,
Is this the three-way mirror?
yeah,
Oh, okay. Or socks.
Socks.
Do you want to read socks?
Yeah, I'll read.
Okay.
Socks is a story about my first pet, and I am very animal oriented. I really like animals, often more than people, but that's not the point. Okay,
I think most people.
I'm going to read to you a story called Socks. I was 3 years old, and it happened in Anaheim, California. We got kittens when I was 3 and Susan was 5. She called hers Puss, and I wanted to call mine Socks, not Boots like in the story. So I called her Socks anyway. One night I heard the kittens crying, so I got up. I saw Mommy pushing aspirin way down their throats. She did it by sticking her finger with the aspirin down the throat. The kitten Puss gagged and struggled. I held Socks and told Mommy not to give Socks any pills, but she insisted and grabbed her from me. She told me cat fever was going around the neighborhood and this would keep it from getting it because aspirin lowers fevers. The next morning after Susan left for school, I wanted to see socks. Mommy said fine and got my dead kitten out of the trash. I held her and cried. I knew it was the pills. She said it was kitten fever. I said it was the pills. Then she said, okay, if the pills killed her, then if we get them out, she'll be fine. It made sense to me because I was only 3. Mommy took newspapers and covered the Formica table with it. It had an aluminum edge with ridges. Then she got out her good knives, the sharp ones I wasn't supposed to touch. Then she started cutting socks all down her tummy and pulled her skin back. Then she cut her some more, saying over and over, you wanted me to get the pills out. This is the only way. She kept cutting her tummy until she found her stomach with the pills. She asked me, do I want the pills out? She told me to stop blubbering and help because Socks's blood was dripping over the edge of the table. Then she pushed my hand inside her and made me feel the pills and asked if I still wanted to get them. I didn't. I just wanted Socks back. She was a good kitten yesterday, but today she made a big mess because I wanted her to be alive. Mommy wrapped her in newspaper. I wanted to hold her. She was still dripping and everything made Mommy madder. She said I was an ungrateful child. After all, she was trying to help the kittens. So for punishment, she put me under the garbage can in the sun in the backyard. I still had Socks all cut up and wrapped in newspaper in my arms. She said I could take this time to say goodbye and think about how a nice girl would treat her mommy. I was so sorry, but she wouldn't listen to me. She dumped the garbage out and put the can over us. There were little white worms all over and they scared me. She banged on the top, which was really the bottom, and told me the more I cried, the longer I would have to stay. So I sat rocking my socks until it got really hot. And then I got the shivers until everything went black. I woke up when she was spraying me with the hose. She told me to apologize to her because I had made it a horrible day. So I said I was sorry. I couldn't find my socks. I think she was in the other trash can. Taking off my wet pajamas in the backyard, I put on my clothes. Susan was getting home from school and it would be time for lunch. We sat down to our vegetable soup, but my tummy hurt. I couldn't tell Mommy because I knew it was my fault. She told us then that the kittens had both died of cat fever. There was a drip of blood over the table edge. Susan was sad too. I had to take my nap after lunch. I was scared of having bad dreams again. This story shows how my mother was so controlling. Everything was controlled and everything had to be her way.
She had an extremely morbid side of controlling you too.
Yes.
By using death, which is an indicator that she would be susceptible to satanic cults.
Yes. One of their jokes was, what's the difference between a puppy and a piece of meat? And the answer is one quick slice.
It's horrible.
So things were not easy at the house. And I worked very hard to make it nicer for my mother. I would get up in the middle of the night once I was 4 and tidy up the living room and tidy up the kitchen if it needed it, and all very quietly so she wouldn't know. And then in the morning she would wake up and say, oh, the fairies came and cleaned the house. Isn't that wonderful?
You were such a good girl.
I was
You were an angel.
giving it my best shot.
Yes.
Yes.
So you went to preschool, they identified you, they recruited you, they hypnotized you and found out that you fit the bill for their agenda.
Yep.
And your mother began selling you.
My mother was willing to do this for the money. Yes. She received money each time they utilized me.
And this was the preschool.
The preschool teacher.
Actually, he was the principal.
The principal.
Correct?
Yeah,
principal
that is
of
right.
the preschool.
Yes.
Okay.
One way that they tested me during this period was in terms of my sexual abilities. And I'm going to read you a story now called The Three-Way Mirrors, and it was done when I was 3.5.
May I add something?
Yes.
This was the first time Nancy was violated when she was 3.
Yeah.
You just said that. I just want them to understand this is the first time.
Yes.
At the age of 3.
Boy, was I excited. It was our special day. I got to spend alone with Mommy, just us. I get to help my mommy and my family, and that is quite special when you're only 4. I get to be Mommy's special helper, and we might even get ice cream. Last night before my bath, she gave me an enema so I would be clean inside and out. She told me it was really important to be clean in body and spirit. With my hair washed after the spray to make it look blonder like a movie star, I was ready for bed. She laid out my clothes for the morning. My favorite twirly dress was hanging on the doorknob on the chair with panties and socks. Underneath Susan's Mary Janes, which she had outgrown. She even cuddled me. She lay down on the bed and started to remind me of all the important things she had taught, all the important things to remember tomorrow. There were lots of rules, but they sounded easy and like stuff I would do anyway. 1, smile. 2, say yes, never no. 3, be nice. 4, say thank you. 5, I'm lucky to get to help my family. 6, be loyal. Don't ever tell anyone. Never cry. 8, don't make a big deal out of it. Lots of little girls have bad dreams. Nothing happened in case anyone, especially Mommy, ever asks. Smile, be nice, say please and thank you, never cry and don't tell. If I could do those really easy things for her, she would make me a promise that I would always be safe in my own bed. That was really important to me since I was having so many bad dreams. I said, yes, Mommy, I will. She hugged me and kissed me on the forehead and told me I was a special and wonderful child. Closing the door, whoops. She said, sleep tight, and went into the kitchen. I heard her tell someone on the phone she really needed a drink. In the morning, she sounded so chipper and happy, like the baby birds in our backyard. They had only hatched last week, but would soon fly away. I wanted frosted flakes for breakfast. Mommy said no, we would eat after, so I went in my room to get all dressed up for our special day. Mommy said there was a surprise in my room. I got new underpants. I never got new ones, and they fit, staying up without my holding them. I usually got Susan's hand-me-down, so this was really exciting. Mommy was getting ready in her room. We both looked really pretty, and even she said so. We were going to the brand new department store where Mommy would be working as a buyer in her own department. Wasn't that wonderful? I don't think I had ever seen her so excited. It wasn't a long ride, so she let me sit in the front seat. When we got there, it was bright and hot outside. The parking lot was so new it didn't even have lines yet. It was so hot the ground had waves of heat coming up. We went to a door on the side of the brand new Broadway. Mommy knocked and we waited. It was hot. A man came and let us in. Mommy told me to call him the doctor. I wondered what a doctor was doing in a store. It was really dark inside and dusty too. The doctor said we have to walk up the escalator, but not to worry, he had a flashlight. We went up the escalator and Mommy showed me where the department was going to be. It was big and dark and cool, and nobody else was there. It felt sort of spooky. The doctor said he would take it from there and for Mommy to come back in 45 minutes. She said, "See you later," and then she giggled. Then she turned to me and said I needed to be sure to remember all the rules. She asked me which one I was forgetting, so I remembered to smile, a big one too. He told me to follow him, so I tried to keep up. It was a long, dark hall with lots of little doors going into little rooms with mirrors. I reached up to take his hand. He walked fast, dropped my hand, and told me just to follow him. We got to the last room, which was bigger with the window way up high. The doctor said, "Here we have natural light." We did too. It streamed in the window and off the mirror, reflecting the room. It had a chair and a really big mirror that would fold around you. The mirror was so nice. He folded it around me and I could see the back of my dress. Closed all the way were lots of me's, some closer, some further away. I couldn't count them all, but we all had to practice smiling. We all smiled just the same. He opened the mirror and sat down on the chair. He wanted me to twirl for him. Mommy must have told him it was my twirly dress. I did, and he smiled at me. It was a creepy smile that made my stomach feel sick. He told me to come again and stand in front of him. I did. He took off my underpants and had me twirl again. Then he took his tail out of his pants. "Do you want to play with it?" he asked. I forgot and just said no. He said, "Fine, it's time to get down to business anyway." His tail got really big when he played with it. He told me to assume the position. I had no idea what he meant, so he pulled me over on his lap and put jelly on my bottom. Then he scooted the chair up really close to the mirror. He closed the other two around us. I looked to make sure I was still smiling, although all I wanted to do was throw up. I couldn't help the snot running down my face. He lifted me up by my waist so we both could see in the mirror. Then he stuck his tail in my bottom. I couldn't help the tears. With each push, I wanted more and more not to be the Nancy here, not to be the Nancy with his tail in my bottom. I wanted to be one of the Nancys far away in the mirror. He told me, "You need to see this." He wanted me to see what it looked like to have his tail inside my bottom. I saw it. It was ugly. I started to cry more, but I never stopped smiling because I wanted to keep my promise to Mommy. He grabbed me tight and shoved it hard into me, his face looking fierce and scary. There were lots of those in the mirror too. He pulled his tail out of me and wiped it on my dress. Telling me to put on my panties now, we had to hurry up. He led me back down the hall, through Mommy's department, down the escalator, and to the side door. I heard a lot, and my new panties were getting all messy. Then he opened the side door. The sun blinded me after the dark store. Mommy came over and told me to get in the back seat of the car. Sliding across the hot car seat, I could hear Mommy ask him how I did. He handed her an envelope and replied, "She'll do." She got in the driver's seat and slammed the door shut. Then she said, "That's okay, sweetie. I'm sure you did your best," in her business voice. I told her I kept smiling over and over until I started to sob. Either she didn't care or she was so wrapped up in her own thoughts she didn't hear me. I had a long bath. Mommy put oatmeal in it. It did make my bottom feel better. Mommy smashed some pills between 2 spoons, and I had to eat the powder. It was bitter, but it helped me sleep through my bad dreams. I got to have a bowl of Frosted Flakes, my favorite kind, and Mommy let me take a nap on her bed, but I had to have a towel under me so I didn't make a mess. She laid down beside me, stroking hair away from my forehead, and sang me her favorite song, "Good Night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams." She sang several rounds, then told me that everybody thinks their dreams are real, but they're only dreams. Sometimes little girls can make that mistake too, thinking their dreams are real. When she asked me as I fell asleep what happened, "Nothing," I'd reply, and she'd rub my back. We would play this game for a long time. All I had to do was say nothing over and over.
Wow.
So that was my first sexual experience, and it was hideous.
There was nothing you could do about it.
There was nothing I could do, even following all of her rules. I still couldn't master it.
You were too young to do anything.
Yes, I was.
So this is how she was making her money?
So she got her envelope with her money, and she was happy with that, but we still couldn't get the ice cream she had promised me, which I did remember. And I decided I would never eat ice cream again, and I didn't for about 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was really your first initiation?
That was mine, yes. My first sexual orientation. And my mother had to prove her loyalty to them. Mm-hmm. And they wanted her to do this by killing an innocent person. And that meant a person who was not involved with the cult in any way.
The blood of the innocent.
The blood of the innocent was what she wanted. And this story that I'm going to read you next is where that happened.
Yes, please.
Excuse me. In the spring of 1954, I was first initiated. It was a windy day, which made my eyes and face itch a lot. I wanted to watch TV, but Mommy told me this was really important and I wouldn't get my own way by whining and sniffling. She made me take napkins instead of Kleenex for my nose. It was really scratchy and turned my nose a bright red. I was wearing my sundress, along with smocking and sandals, and was really glad I didn't have to get an enema. So we met him in the parking lot of Long Strugs. Mommy really likes that store. He was there first, so we got in his car. It was black and white, like a police car. I sat in the back seat and was really quiet. I think that was another of the rules. But I didn't know if I was supposed to smile, so I tried to be invisible, but it didn't work. We'd been driving for a long time, maybe half an hour. Mommy said we were in Laguna Canyon. We turned. Suddenly it was a dirt road that was bumpy and very dusty too. Then all of a sudden the car hit a man on a motorcycle and knocked him down a hill. The doctor stopped the car, grabbed his bag, and told us to hurry up. Mommy pushed me down the hill. The man, well, really he was a kid, was mad that the doctor, Mommy's friend, showed him something and then put handcuffs on him. He put them on too tight. He kept asking the doctor what he was doing and why. I told the doctor the handcuff was too tight and it was hurting him. The doctor kicked him in the crotch, so he rolled down the hill, and the doctor threw me on top of him. He shot him in his tummy. There was blood bubbling up on his shirt. Then the doctor started yelling at me. You didn't want his arm to hurt. Fine, his arm won't hurt anymore. And he pulled a hatchet out of his bag and started whacking at his wrist. No, don't hurt him. But it sounded like just another howl in the wind. He screamed, what the fuck are you doing to this kid? And then he brought his newly freed arm across me. Something weird happened next. It was like the kid was holding me, holding my face away so I couldn't see what was happening next. He was holding my face away with his hand that was on the ground, and he never let go. Mommy pulled me off him, and we had to do one more thing. She wrapped my 4-year-old fingers around the trigger of the gun. She put her hands over mine, and we blew his face off. Only the doctor was smiling. He told my mother to help clean up. She wanted me to pick up the pieces of his face, but all I wanted to do was throw up forever. Mommy reminded me to thank her for helping clean up. I didn't feel like it, but I did it anyway. The doctor put his body, he wasn't there anymore, into the bag. We had to pick up the mess. I remember his hand. As we climbed the hill, the trunk was open and the doctor threw the bag in. He slammed the trunk shut and told me to get on the floor of the back seat. So I did. I couldn't help but wish the kid was okay. When we got to the landfill, they started up a bulldozer and put the bag in. They buried the bag deep in the landfill. He was nice. He tried to help, and he cared about me too. The ride back to Long's was really quiet. After we got back to the parking lot, Mommy made me wait in our hot car alone while she went in. I wanted to go too. She told me to knock it off. She wouldn't be long, and I was too dirty to go inside. I waited in the car, and she came back with 2 bottles in a brown paper bag. When she got home, she got the bottle out. One was alcohol, not for kids. The other would make me feel better. It was charcoal codeine. She gave me 4 big spoons. Then I got a quick bath because she was tired and she put me to bed. When I woke, I was scared. I asked Mommy, she said I must be having more bad dreams. She called me to her and held me while she sang, "Good night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams." So that was the second most horrific thing I'd been through.
And your mother's first initiation, because she had to take the blood of the innocent in order to be
Yes,
a part of
the cult.
the cult,
Yes, and to continue to receive her money.
to continue to receive her money. They had to trust that she was, well, it was like a form of bribery, actually.
Blackmail.
It was blackmail. They had her hold her they had you put your hand on the trigger, and then she pulled it. So she got you involved.
She tried to make me think I did it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But this is how they do it, is they like taking a photo or something for the records, but this is more on like a psychological, emotional level. They got her mother to be fully involved at this point. And the first confession. And the reason we're taking time to do it like this is that you'll understand at the end of this interview, Nancy's memory was wiped from her mind many, many times. So we rely on these memories that she recollected as to give you a raw and unfiltered truth.
My memories came back when my daughter was turning 3, and just the sheer tininess of her really struck me. And then I started having nightmares about what had happened, and they made no sense to me. So I just kept going. My mother, I'm going to read you now one that's called Songs That Stick in Your Head. Mm-hmm. You know, the songs that go around and around and you can't get rid of them.
And this specifically is a part of, this is when she started
No,
excuse me.
No, that's not yet. Okay, all day, a song my mother used to sing to me has been stuck in my head, which is not a good thing. Good night, Irene, good night, Irene, good night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams. It's a nice song, so where's the problem? The problem is why she would sing it, when and why she would sing it. This time it was when I was 5. The times were always after doing something as her special girl, i.e. for the cult group, which was never a pleasant experience. This time they had tied me to the bed face down in a hotel. Each man had his 15 minutes with the second grade 7-year-old I was. The ropes were tied tightly around my wrists and they hurt. The third man who came in felt sorry for me, so he took out his pocket knife to loosen the rope on my left hand, but he slipped and cut my wrist. He must have gotten scared because at that point he laughed. My bloody wrist was making a mess on the bed and I was getting really scared. Then a knock came on the door, and my mother in a giddy voice called, "Are we done yet?" I was so scared and I called to her, "Mommy, help me." She came at me like a bull. "Why did you complain? This is your own fault. Stop whining. Now I have another mess to clean up." Usually when Mommy came in to clean me up, she was nice and happy, wiping me off with the hotel washcloths and drying me so I would be fresh as a daisy for the next nice man. Sometimes she would tell me, "Boy, he blew a big one," or what a good girl I was being. Not this time. When I started to cry, she told me we had to stop the bleeding, so she got another washcloth. I bled through that before it was the next man's turn. Mommy was mad. The doctor told her to put salt on the cut to stop the bleeding. I cried out as she poured it on the cut, shaking it from the little paper package they have in hotel rooms. Still being tied, there wasn't much I could do. I tried not to cry out, but I did anyway. I said no uncertain terms. She said in no uncertain terms, if it was good enough for Christ, it's more than good enough for you. Then she wrapped my wrists tighter this time with a towel. Then she pushed it under the rope so I could no longer struggle. Then she gave the doctor the okay, we could start again. 8 nice men, that's what she called them. Later, she had her bulging envelope in her handbag and I got to go home. The doctor had shown her how to use the ECT machine, so we did that routine yet again. Take a bath, brush my teeth, go to the bathroom. Going to the bathroom was very important so I didn't make another mess for her to clean up. When I got in bed, there was a suitcase which held the ECG machine. As I knelt by the floor singing my prayers, she would put the ring around my head and then start tightening the screws. I remember going into 3 sets of 3 convulsions. Then I would usually hopefully pass out. Coming to, Mommy would say, my special girl had another bad dream, and she would start singing to me, saying if I had any more bad dreams, to come and get in bed with her. I usually woke in the night, my head throbbing, and every muscle in my small body hurting so badly. Then I would crawl in bed and she would sing, good night, Irene, good night, Irene, I'll see you in my dreams.
So that's how she was programming you.
Yes, my memory firmly erased by ECT. I once again, like most second graders, thought I had the best mom in the world.
When you woke up in the morning with a... Correct.
Yes.
So this was the beginning of the end, as Nancy has put it. She's going to be reading about her first near-death experience.
Having near-death experiences saved me.
Mm-hmm.
It was the only thing that truly gave me hope. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. Might add that it gave you the strength that you needed to get through all of these experiences.
Yes.
That's exactly what she needed.
Stars for my crown in heaven. My second initiation. I was age 6 and it happened in Anaheim. I was a big girl and a bride of Christ since my first communion. Now it was time for my other initiation. It was a favor Mommy had to ask me to do to help my family and do some of my suffering here on earth. See, that way when I die, I should have my suffering deducted and not have to spend too long in purgatory. Mommy told me it would help me earn stars for my crown in heaven. That night, we drove to a lonely warehouse that was dark. She gave me a long white robe with no underwear, which was creepy. Walking to the door, holding Mommy's hand, she knocked. The doctor opened the door. Mommy pushed me into the warehouse, which was dark except for some candles. There were men in robes, but theirs were black. There was a big wooden box, for an altar with a marble top. My stomach was in my throat. My hands were freezing. It smelled funny because they were burning incense just like a mass. The doctor took my hand, closing the door on Mommy, and said, "Tonight you shall also wed Satan." I knew this was bad. After putting me on the marble tabletop, they said their weird prayers and walked around the altar, as they called it. They all took turns washing me. My body wasn't opening for them like they wanted it to, so they took a crucifix and stuck it up inside me. It hurt a lot. I knew my pain was not as bad as Christ's, and I better not cry or scream. The men began poking me inside, one after another with their tails. Once there was a lot of blood, it didn't hurt so much anymore. Then they cracked my hip because I was too small, and that didn't hurt so much either. But I could hear it just like a chicken when you cut it up for dinner. I told them with a voice I didn't know that I had, that they were nothing more than a pack of mangy curs lapping at the blood of the innocent, and that the blood would never rise to their loins again. It was hardly hurting at all anymore, and I saw the most beautiful light. I glanced up, and suddenly I was no longer on the altar in the warehouse, but was instead in the light, just as I was. I was in heaven. I was face down on a beautiful path where even the dirt smelled good. I looked up and saw my grandfather and the kid on the motorcycle and Christ in a long robe with sandals. I reached for the hem of his robe like Mary Magdalene. She was dirty too, and I could be cleansed. Just as I was about to touch it, Christ turned. I was so dirty I didn't want him to see me, much less pick me up. Jesus said I wasn't dirty. I was fine, even everything that was on me. I was still his child, and he loved me. He just loved me and held me. He even kissed away the tears on my cheeks. I turned to see Grandpa and the kid walking down the wide dirt road. Grandpa tipped his hat and the kid nodded goodbye. They turned down the path. I knew I was safe with Jesus. Christ said he had some things to show and share with me. These gifts I would always have to help me. He showed me a tall basket. It was woven out of reeds. It had a lid that was shaped like a hat. We have to put all the things that hurt you in the basket. We put in the robes, the crucifix, the salt, socks, and more. When he had put everything I could think of in, he put some other things that he knew needed to be in the basket. He put the lid on. I wondered about the other people and where their pain was. He showed me a vast hillside covered in similar baskets, then told me he would take care of my basket for me until I was stronger. When I was stronger, he said, I would be able to hold my own pain, but not for a long time. Next, he took me to a large, beautiful lake in which nothing grew. I wanted to know why nothing grew. Jesus told me it was the lake of uncried tears, and then he told me that even heaven would be happier. I didn't know that was possible when I'm stronger and can cry my own tears. I wanted to know about the blood. He told me it's beating in my heart. Then he opened his robe to show me. Next, he sat me down. I was amazed that nothing hurt, not my bottom or my girl parts. This is so wonderful, I wanted to stay forever. He knelt down in front of me, looking in my eyes. He told me he had to send me back there. It was important work he needed me to do. I pleaded and complained that I really wanted to stay. I would be so very good, but it didn't work. Jesus had more to show me. He showed me a very treacherous path and said it was mine. He said there were stickers and thorns and mud and rocks, and it didn't look like anything I ever wanted to do. Jesus told me I had to keep going day after day and do my best not to look back until I reached the top. I wondered if I'd turn into salt. He smiled and shook his head no. When my eyes locked on his, I felt his love. While on earth, it felt like I was being sucked back into my body. Back in the warehouse with the men in robes, one of them was pounding on my chest. I was trying to catch my breath when I heard a knock on the door. A man, the doctor carried me to the door. Mommy was not happy. You never said you were going to kill her. They gave her an envelope with writing on it, and a plain one too. The doctor carried me to the back seat of the car where I got to lie down. We drove through the city at night, and the neon signs were pretty. I lay on the back seat, still bleeding. It was a nice, dizzy sort of feeling. She ran up the stairs to the side door on the old 2-story house. The doctor came, their doctor came out and carried me in. He had black skin, and so did his nurse. He got mad when I started to scream because they wanted to sew up my bottom. He told me to be quiet and gave me some medicine so I could sleep. Then he sewed me up. The lady, a nurse, I think, was wiping me off with a cool towel. She held my hand, wiped me off, and whispered not to cry. She said things like this should never happen to children. I could tell she didn't like my mommy. I remember getting home and Mommy waking me up to go to bed. I told Mommy my bottom really hurt. She said to get inside and go to bed. Then she gave me a blue pill and wiped me off with a washcloth because I was still dirty. Then she started to sing the Goodnight Irene song until I got sleepy. Then we played the What Happened Nothing game over and over until I fell asleep. So that was my initiation.
Your first near-death experience.
Yes. Yes.
And you saw Christ's beating heart, his beating. He opened his chest.
He opened his robe and showed me. Yeah.
It's amazing, really.
Yeah.
So here we are here. Guys. Is there anything you want to say in between?
Second grade was a terrible year for me, and they tested our IQs somewhere in the middle of all this, and I ended up turning out to be double normal.
What?
Dull normal?
Dull?
Dull.
Dull normal.
Yeah. Like
I wonder
dumb.
why.
Yeah. And all of these experiences contributed to the dull part of the dull normal.
No, the trauma that you went through. How can you even, I can't even believe that you were all this time in between these experiences. Nancy was going to school and her mother was hiding this from her own sister. This is how organized she was. And your father didn't want to know. He really didn't want to know. Couldn't.
That's the next part.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me.
You're giving away the punchlines. Okay.
We're gonna go back. You want to drink a little water?
Yeah.
Clear your throat a little bit.
It's okay, Sparky. This isn't happening today. This was a long time ago. I'm going to read you now my first confession. In the second grade, at the end of the year, all the kids who were going to have their first communion got to go to a special class called CCD, the Confraternity of Christian Doctrine. We got to learn things like, who made you? God made me. Why? To love and adore him. They told us how God gave us the perfect parents for us. And when we went to confession to tell everything we had ever done wrong, because if we left anything out, it was just another sin, and I knew I'd committed enough already. So my 6-year-old conscience examined itself a lot and decided it was better to confess too many than not enough. So on the big day, we knelt in front of the wooden pews waiting for our turn. It was hot and stuffy in the church, so I was scared. When my turn came, I went in the little dark confessional, kneeling, waiting and terrified. The little door slid back, and I remembered the words, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. This is my first confession, and these are my sins." Well, my sins came tumbling out about hating the men with tails, about the kid on the motorcycle, about crying when I was only supposed to smile, about not wanting to help my mom. I told him everything I could remember. Sorry?
You're fine. You're fine. You're doing great.
There we go. He said, "Child, your sins are forgiven you."
No, you're right. You're right on path.
He thought maybe I could talk to my dad, and I only had to say one Hail Mary. But after my confession, he left the confessional too. He was crying. He talked to my catechism teacher and left the church. That night there was a knock at the door. It was the priest. He wanted to talk to my mom, but she didn't want to talk to him. She started yelling about the sanctity of the confessional and how he was celibate and not to tell her about raising children, and she slammed the door in his face. The next day she called the church to report him for breaking the sanctity of the confessional. My dad was very tall with dark hair and eyes. He grew up in Hobbs, New Mexico. My mother said it was a big dirt farm. I didn't know you could grow dirt. He was in the Navy. I think he looks like the sailor on the Cracker Jack box. Sometimes he would sing the Surrey with the fringe on top. It was fun when we would go swinging at the park in Anaheim. Sometimes we would bring home tadpoles in a jar. They usually got flushed the same night. We got to spend 9 to 5 with Daddy. Daddy said we got to because that's what they agreed to in court. One Saturday, he was fixing things around the house to make them work better. I watched him fix the window in the garage, and then he went to fix the screen door on the back porch. He was sitting down, so I crawled up on his lap and began to tell him everything. He kept repeating questions I didn't know the answers to. He said Mommy told him I had bad dreams, and I tried to tell him about the kid's hand and the mirrors, and he got mad and said no, she couldn't be that bad. He made me get off his lap. He kept looking at me, shaking his head, and then he went inside. I heard them talking, concerned and defensive and angry. Daddy came back out on the porch. It was like a shade had been pulled in my daddy's eyes. He didn't let his heart shine through anymore. Daddy got there right at 9 a.m. He was really excited about his new seat belts. The seat belts were supposed to make it safer for riding in the car. I climbed over the front seat to give him a hug and a kiss, and then it was Susan's turn. She got to sit in the front because she was older. Mommy wrapped the seatbelt around me and sort of shut the back door. She told Daddy it was all set and she would see us at 5. As he backed up the driveway and turned onto Hampshire Avenue, the door flew open and I fell out in the street. Mommy came running over. She was really calm and told me I was fine. She convinced Daddy that he and Susan should have the day together and she and I would be fine at home. As soon as she left, she gave me a peppermint candy and told me to sit on a chair in the kitchen. I heard her go into the bedroom and telephone someone. Then she came back into the kitchen to wash up my scrapes. The bubbles only hurt a little. I told Mommy I missed Daddy. She asked why I didn't want to spend the day with her. I told her I did, I just missed my daddy too. She said her friend was coming over and everything was fine. Her friend, the doctor, got there pretty soon. He looked real excited and told Mommy I should lie down while he showed her what was in the suitcase he brought. So, can I see? I asked. No, go lay down on your new bed. My new bed was wrought iron and it had a heart in the middle with 2 extra loops on each side. It was pretty and Mommy had promised me if I was good, I would be safe in it. Being safe was really important, but being pretty was nice too. The doctor called me into the living room and asked if I liked his necktie. It was pretty and silky feeling. I told him yes, I did like it. He asked if I wanted to wear it. I said yes. He slipped the knot down, lifted the tie over his head and put it over mine. Then he tightened it up to my neck. He pulled another out of his pocket and put it around his neck so we could get the knot right. And then he asked me if I wanted to wear 2. Sure, I told him. So he loosened it and put it over my head. I thought it was fun to twirl in them. They flew out and made a big circle. He said I should take off my clothes so they could twirl more. So I took off my shirt and pants so they could see it better. Mommy came out in her best nightie and twirled for him too. He told her we sure looked pretty. Then Mommy said it was time for my nap. I started to give the doctor back his ties, but he said I could wear them for my nap. Going into the bedroom, the doctor got on one side of the bed and Mommy got on the other. They each tied a necktie to the bed. When I asked Mommy why, she said it was so I would remember to be a good girl. Then the doctor started to take off his clothes too. Mommy played with his tail until it got big and hard. Her cheeks were pink and they both looked really excited. With his tail big and hard, he pulled me down on the bed and shoved it into my bottom. Mommy held her hand over my mouth and told me this is what little girls are for, to make men feel good. Then he pulled his tail out of me and stuck it in Mommy. She made a lot of noise but kept her hand clamped over my mouth. After he took his tail out of Mommy, he stuck it back in me, pulling me down the bed. The neckties were really tight, but I couldn't tell because her hand was still over my mouth. He kept saying how little girls were so nice and tight. He kept pulling me and pushing into me. It hurt a lot. I soon felt a foggy darkness with a small light in it. I remembered it and wanted to see it closer. When I got to the light, I was on the floor of a room of weavers. Each weaver had a big loom. They had treadles and made a wonderful clacking sound. The lady I was near welcomed me and told me that they were the weavers of the fates, and that each person has a weaver and puts the yarns of their life into the tapestry. I asked who she was working on. Yours, my child, yours. There was a basket of yarns. I started to look through. A lot of them were ugly, stinky, or scratchy. I pulled on her dress and told her I didn't like them. She didn't blame me, but she had to put them in anyway. I wanted to know why. She smiled and said that sometimes free will gets really ugly, stinky, and scratchy, but it was part of life and it had to go in. I started to drip tears. I didn't want an ugly one, I told her. No one would, she said. But when you get older, you can reweave your own tapestry into something beautiful. How? By accepting the yarns, cleaning them, and looking at all the beautiful yarns underneath it. She said she knew I would find a way because my work was strong and true. I laid my head on her lap for a few moments, and then I was sucked back into my body on the bed with the neckties. Mommy was talking to me. She needs her special girl back. The doctor was kissing me, blowing in my mouth, but at least he didn't stick his tongue in me. The neckties were back in his pocket. He had his pants on. Mommy put her nightie on. He told Mommy he would be right back and to have me go to the bathroom. I did. Then I asked if I could put my clothes on. She said no, it would just make more laundry. We all went back to the bedroom. They made me sit on my bed naked. He opened the suitcase. It had knobs, dials, and things shaped like a circle with cords and wires everywhere. He showed Mommy how to plug it in and then put the circle thing on my head. It had screws that tightened into my head. Then I had to lie down. Mommy put a dirty towel under my bottom so I didn't make a mess. He said to start low. I felt a buzz in my head get stronger and stronger. I got scared and started to scream. Mommy clamped her hand over my mouth. My arms and legs were kicking, my body jumping. He turned it off and told Mommy to do it 2 more times. It was awful. I wet the towel and everything. They decided 3 sets of 3 would be enough to erase my memory. On the last set, I threw up the pink candy Mommy had given me before. The doctor told her not to worry, it was a normal side effect. When I passed out, I looked for the light, but it was not there. After my nap, my Mommy came in to wake me up. She said I needed a bath and to get in my pajamas because Susan and Dad would be there soon. I even got bubbles in my bath. So I tried to play with them, but everything hurt, especially my head and neck. I wore my nightie with lots of ruffles around the neck and got to lay on the couch and watch TV. Mommy wrapped me up in my red blanket and went into the kitchen to finish dinner. She was making spaghetti, my favorite, but it made me kind of sick to smell it. Daddy knocked at the front door with Susan. They came in. He and Susan had gone to a bookstore and they had picked out a book for each of us. I asked him if I had to give it back, and he said no, it was mine forever. Daddy told Mommy I didn't look good and that they should take me to the doctor. She said no, that she had talked to the doctor and he told her what to look for. I said I didn't want to see the doctor, but I was okay. Daddy hugged me goodbye and told me he loved me and would see me next week. I thanked him for my book and told him I loved him. He called to Susan, who was in her room reading, to hug him goodbye and left. Mommy gave me a glass of ginger ale and said I didn't have to eat if my stomach was still upset. I lay on the couch and looked at the pictures in the book while Mommy and Susan ate spaghetti. I looked at the pictures, but none of the letters made sense. That night, Mommy tucked me in and sang "Goodnight, Irene," and then we played the What Happened game, nothing, over and over again. And I think I need a break.
No problem. So this is the first part of the video. We will be completing it. Please stay tuned. We'll post the next video in just a few minutes. Thank you.